All right, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, and a very good evening. I'm just going to go straight right in. Our topic, just to remind everybody, is leadership and talent management, enhancing operational excellence in a digital new era through technology and people. Okay, so that's a mouthful, but very, very relevant and very important in the current times. I'm gonna go straight into introducing first the panelists, all right? On my right is Professor Dato Dr. Muhammad Azmi Omar. Dr. Azmi Omar is the President and CEO of INCEIF, the Global University of Islamic Finance, and he's been holding that position since October 2017. Prior to this, he was the Director General of Islamic Research and Training Institute, Islamic Development Bank Group in Jeddah, Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, and before that, a senior professor and university administrator at the International Islamic University, Malaysia. Dr. Azmi had advised and provided technical assistance to a number of IDB member countries in their implementation of Islamic finance, and he is a member of the External Advisory Group for IMF Interdepartmental Working Committee on Islamic Finance, as well as Board of Trustees of Responsible Finance Institute Foundation. Dr. Azmi also serves as a member of the Sharia Committee to Bank Rakyat Malaysia, to Etika Takaful Malaysia, and as the Islamic finance expert to the Authority Monetary Brunei Darussalam. He is active in LinkedIn with over 500 connections. So, you know, he's, I'm introducing the rest first. Yeah. So you can find him there. I'm changing the format a little. Yep. So I'll introduce next Dato Henry Goh. He is the Group Chief Operating Officer of Macro Kiosk. He's responsible for the efficiency of the organization's business operations, policies, and procedures. I was told that just this month, right, 5th June 2020, Dato Henry, along with his two brothers, acquired 100% ownership and obtained the full controls of Macro Kiosk. He was awarded the EY Emerging Entrepreneur of the Year in 2006. He's also been featured on Malaysia's Who's Who list of most influential Malaysians in 2011 and top 40 under 40. Prestige Magazine Malaysia in 2015. There you go, the color behind Dato Henry. Mr. Tay K. Luan is the Vice Chancellor and CEO of the International University Malaya-Wales, IUMW. K. Luan brings with him more than 30 years of leadership experience from his leadership roles at the Australia-New Zealand Institute, Asian Institute of Chartered Bankers, ACCA, Hay Group, and Accenture. He holds a Master of Science in Industrial Relations, Sociology, and Manpower Planning from LSE, and and from Kingston University, UK. Now, Keluan, I think in March and April, was undergoing terrible withdrawal symptoms, because when I asked him what he does over the weekends, he says he and his wife go jalan-jalan cari makan all over Malaysia. So, okay. And last but not least is Indra Dhanu, Mr. Indra Dhanu. Indra is Director, People and Organization, Southeast Asia Consulting, PwC. Indra has undertaken some very solid projects, yeah, like success factor implementation for a large utility provider. He has actually helped a client design the workforce model, the 5-year workforce model for this client, very relevant to the topic that we are discussing today. And he has also contributed to the National Vocational Study and helped forecast the demand of vocational courses by industry, region, and course type. Indra, if not consulting, would be a stage artist. He did 5 years of state and national level theatre in India. All right, now, let's get right into it. And getting right into it means asking, I'm going to be asking you some questions. 3 questions, just 3 questions, okay? Now, this first question, your answer is a number, 1 to 5, all right? 1, far from it. 5, absolutely, totally, okay? And of course, in between is 2, 3, 4, right? Okay. Question is, the banking and FI sector is utilizing all available technological tools at its disposal today to design a much improved operational excellence model. 1, far from it. 5, absolutely, totally. Henry? 2 or 3? 3, 4? 3, 4? 2.5. 2.5, okay. So you're getting to know content as well as the gentleman with me, okay? In terms of their outlook. All right, question number 2. Same 1 to 5. 1 far behind. 1, yeah? 5 well ahead of the others. Okay, question. Digital upskilling and capability building is being pursued very well in the banking sector for operational excellence.
I would say 3.
3?
3.
3?
2 or 3.
Okay, fence sitters. or safe, politically. All right. Question 3. Now, we'll change the answer, no longer 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, but, and be truthful. All right. Choose either of these 2 words, yeah? The first one that comes to mind, right? It's either risk or opportunity, okay? When you answer this question. So, which word first comes to your mind when you see the phrase digital transformation? Opportunity. Ah, okay. All right, glass half full people. Good. All right. Okay, now, leadership and talent management, enhancing operational excellence in a digital new era through technology and people. A few key points first to hone and hopefully to tie all the comments together. I will not be interrupting them after this, okay? Firstly, landscape. Where are we today? Okay? Now, we are in a significantly different digital era, thanks to the lockdown, isn't it? Yeah, the lockdown experience. So the silver lining that we quite rampantly refer to as the new normals, all right, must be utilized to our benefit, and we are way ahead now from where we were back in probably January, February. So I'd like to remind us, and I remind myself every day, do not waste the crisis. Okay? Second, operational excellence, our topic today, is not a destination. Neither is there a model for everybody. Okay? It is a journey, typically involving the collaboration, close collaboration across the value chain of an organization, as if an organization is not complex enough already, right? So it requires a strong infrastructure that pulls and binds it all together, however, ensures agility. Almost like an oxymoron, isn't it? Right? You want a stable infrastructure, but you want agility. But welcome to the digital world. Third, and this is my second last point, technology. It's not about the tech, it's what we do with the tech, right? Okay. Technology causes us to change our behavior. Look at Zoom. Who doesn't know Zoom today, right? And Zoom is now a verb. That Zoom is now a verb. So it is part of the solution. It's not the solution, right? And of course, finally, people. Forbes and IBM sums it very well. They said more than 80% of companies that attempt digital transformation failed, simply because they forgot that all of it is still human business. Instead, the focus, as you and I know, would be on digital optimization, on cost trade-offs, on the technology platforms, digital marketing, and so forth. So they forgot that the center of everything that handles those is humans, right? So in terms of the workforce, like tech, the demand today is always available. Now, how on earth are we going to achieve that demand, and it's a reality, if we do not reconfigure our workforce and our workplace, as well as, of course, the culture, right? So work from home is one of the solutions. So, Dato, Dr. Azmi, I shall now hand over to you, and let's hear what your response is from your angle here.
Okay,
Thanks.
thank you very much, Dato Nora. Can you hear me? Okay, thank you much. Dato Nora, the moderator, fellow panel members, Tan Sri. First, let me thank you for inviting me to share my thoughts here. I'm coming from the angle of Islamic finance industry rather than general finance industry. Somebody who have worked in Malaysia and abroad, especially in the context of helping both financial institutions as well as governments, because I advise and until today continue to work with Brunei Central Bank on developing Islamic finance industry in Indonesia as well as in Central Asia. As you can see, the demand for Islamic finance, particularly middle and senior level management, is continuing to grow, both in the context of banking, takaful, as well as capital market. Even in the context of capital market, let me just share with you an example in Malaysia. We have public listed firms which are Sharia compliant and non-Sharia compliant. Companies which are non-Sharia compliant are asking SC, can we fulfill the criteria? Can we be in the Sharia compliant list? Why? Because your investors will then be bigger than just conventional. Hence, to do that, you need somebody who knows Islamic finance, who knows a bit of Sharia, and of course, who knows either capital market, banking, or takaful, and so on. So, as I said, as the industry grows in Malaysia, as well as in many other countries, the demand continues to grow. But what makes it much more challenging now, today, with this COVID-19, is the application of technology. You know, technology. Before, Islamic banking or Islamic finance continued to grow like any other industry, with pent-up demand from the what we call unserved communities. Now, more and more people are entering the financial sector. However, specific skills are required, particularly in the context of technology. I'll give an example. In Malaysia, we are concerned about the B40s. And B40s normally would not have that banking or access to banking. For example, last year, I went to do some community work in Rantau Panjang in Kelantan. Just imagine, somebody do not have a banking account. Partly because from the village to go to the town, he has to go to the main road and wait for half an hour to 1 hour just to get a bus to the main town. So in a sense, no banking account, but there is internet. So do we do something using technology, having a simple banking account for payment and receipt of payment for that particular thing? So what we're seeing is that now, because of the implication of technology, Islamic financial institutions would have to move not only purely in the context of providing the traditional services, but using digital applications, which also means that Islamic finance guys must not only know banking, but must all have knowledge in terms of using applications or digital applications. So that's one example, as you said. So beyond Islamic banking or beyond Sharia, which requires you to have that digital knowledge. That's one. Secondly, September last year, Bank Negara issued Sharia governance policy document. Okay, this is a very important document. Of course, it sanctions financial institutions which do not comply with Sharia. That document says that one, board members, senior management, staff must develop and strengthen Islamic finance knowledge, which means that no longer board members can say, no, can I get my staff to know? Okay, I'm not involved, I just focus on strategy. No. Board members, senior management and staff must know. And in my experience working with bank, we find that there are quite a number of what we call Sharia non-compliant happening. And the reason is mainly due to human factor. So what it means is that you need to upskill your staff knowledge to understand Islamic finance so that they will be able to reduce that human factor. So how will they reduce that human factor? Through digital. Okay, I'll give you a simple example. In Islamic finance, it's very important to follow the right sequence in terms of using the Sharia principle, Sharia contracts. If you use wrong, what you call sequence, that particular transaction is not Sharia compliant. And many times, in occasions, you see that that problem always being discussed in the Sharia committee of financial institutions. So one way to reduce is through technology, which means that you digitize the processes. Once you digitize the processes, human intervention will be less, therefore Sharia non-compliance will be less. Bear in mind, under the Sharia governance policy document, is the board is responsible for the Sharia non-compliance. Okay, so let me say, just to repeat, one is that as Islamic finance expands globally, there is a strong demand for especially middle and senior, but somebody who has knowledge of Sharia or Islamic finance. And as technology becomes more prevalent, you need somebody who acquire that technology knowledge. And then in addition to the COVID-19, we have one important component, just to end here, is that Bank Negara plus SC, they are also promoting Islamic social finance, the role of zakat, sadaqah, and wakaf. So Islamic banks are now working with the zakat authorities and wakaf authorities in the country. So they also need to acquire that zakat and wakaf. And now the zakat and wakaf in Malaysia are implemented through digital application. I'll give one simple example, which I'm proud to say in Kedah. Although I did not come from Kedah, they have zakat on touch. It's a very, you know how much money is being given every day and how much is being distributed as zakat, all real-time data. So that's an example. So I end with that. Thank you very much.
Fabulous. I think, I'm not going to sum it up, but I'm sure you wrote it down. At least 3 solutions there already, right, that can be implemented very, very quickly, and you free up your human beings to do work that's higher value and requires judgment and relationship building. All right, thank you, Dato Azmi. Should I follow the order then? That would be Dato Henry. Okay.
All right. Good afternoon, everyone, and of course, thanks to Dato Nora. She's probably one of the best moderators so far. Really well organized. Thanks. Yeah, I'm from a company called Kiosk, but basically we are not banking. We are not a bank, or I should say, not a financial institution. But however, we are quite fortunate in a way that we can provide a lot of our solutions, digital solutions, to the banking and financial industry. And as such, we help a lot of these companies to go digitalization, whether it's for their employees or whether it's for their users or their customers. And as such, we have been doing this since year 2003, especially thanks to the support of the Malaysia's biggest bank. That's our first customer. Since then, we have been working with a lot of different banks, employees, and their talents, and the whole process since 2003 till now. We can see that whole entire thing that maybe I can share a little bit of what I've seen. Generally, I believe is that technology is not. I should say that there's no such thing as the latest technology. I would think is that technology is the latest is when you apply it. So that's where we do see that a lot of, there's no point, I'm trying to say there's no point looking for the latest technology. It's basically to have a point of trying to make that technology work for your company. I think that's the most important thing. But however, coming to that factor, I do see that when we start to, say, for example, provide a new technology to a bank, what they usually do, especially the smaller banks, is that they will actually do a very top-down approach in driving technologies. And I think that is the, so they will like, maybe like a professor was saying just now, it's more like a, the boss might not know it, but your employee is just going to get something done. Generally, that happens in technology as well. And I think this problem about this is that when you start to have a top-down approach in terms of trying to drive technology in an organization, especially as large as a bank, is really extremely difficult. So it's not really in the point of saying that, hey, my staff do not know about technology, but I think they know about technology. I mean, especially nowadays with access to smartphones and things like that, they're actually quite well versed technologically. But the adoption of it would then comes to a point that says that it comes from the top down. So not many people like the top down approach, and that's where technology adoption that we see in some of our customers fail because of that little bit of a barrier that we see. So we can see that some banks are really good in the sense that they have a transformation team, digital transformation team, where they go and encourage and try to drive digital adoption in the company or in the bank rather than doing a really pure top-down approach. So that works really, really well for talent management in terms of adopting technology. And also we do see that a lot of times, especially when we build solutions for banks, there are a lot of environments where they will pass us a whole entire book of their process and say that please build a technology that can follow this process. And the problem about that is really, you are not maximizing technology. That's the first part. And the second part about it is really the point is that we should be actually changing our process to suit the available technology. I think that's the most critical part of digitalization. And if we are going to use digitalization and implementing the same process that you have in the bank, that you are used to in a non-digital environment, you're not going to get adoption because a lot of times in human nature, there's two parts to it. First part is that if I've been doing this way with the same process, I'm doing it well, why should I then use digitalization? I would probably be more efficient using my old way rather than going on a new way. So I think that's where digital adoption fails as well in technology. Then we must come out with something that's very exciting to them. They say there's something new, it's going to help you be more efficient, and this is a new process. And of course, one part that I do see as well, I mean, not happening very often, but there is, where there are employees that also say that if I help the company to adopt technology quicker, does it mean that my job is going to get lost one day? I think that's also one area where you get a lot of pushback from the employees to say that, I'm not going to do this because if my whole department might be gone because they don't need me anymore. And I think that's also one part where it drives a little bit of fear. So top-down approach, again, as I mentioned, is a little bit tough in trying to drive this whole thing. So I mean, just to look at this few scenarios of it in the sense that it's not really much technology. I think technology is good, I think that's there and it's available, but then how do we then drive that down through an environment where it's not a top-down approach, it's probably not even the human resource department-driven effort, but rather to say that it's a driven effort by the department itself, by individual department in terms of what do I need, what kind of technology. It means more like the company encourages departments and different divisions and say that, please look at technology that can suit you. I'm not going to tell you what technology to use, but please go and look at some form of platforms that suits you. And I think that drives easier approach in terms of them adopting technologies and adopting, of course, the correct technology. A lot of times as well, due to, there's one company there's one bank that we did the appraisal systems for the human resource. But the point is that to them it says that, it's a human resource KPI, and it's not my KPI. And I think that becomes another problem of adoption. So I would say that, I would want to put in a sense that we should manage our talent, not in the point that I want to implement technology, but rather that is through learning, through encouraging, through setting up a proper framework where it makes them feel that they own the technology, they own the KPI, and then encourage them to use technology for the own benefit of their KPI rather than to be a top-down approach and the resistance that I can see from that area. So maybe a transformation team that goes down to the grassroots, if there's such a big bang, to actually create some kind of political support. I would think is not politics per se, but rather it says encouraging them and trying to do them. That would be better than just a memo going out and say, please do this. And that's really a big difference in how technology adoption in talent management, I think. Yeah. Thanks. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. What comes to my mind is this outside-in refreshing approach. Now, why outside-in? Because you're non-banker, non-HR. Okay? So very practical and makes so much sense. But I always say to my team, and I pull my hair and I go, common sense is not so common. Okay. All right. So over to you, Mr. K. Luan.
Thank you. Thank you, Dato Nora. Before I begin to take my approach, I'd like to thank Tan Sri Michael Yeo, a very old friend of mine who has kindly invited me back again. I can't recall how many banking conference have I attended, over the last at least 15 years or so, I think. I used to work in a bank that no longer exists, Okay, I'm going to take this approach from the people's perspective, focusing very much on the social agenda. I decided that it's time that I gone soft in this rather than in the hard world where profits are always being mentioned all the time. Taking the perspective of values, access, as well as inclusiveness, more importantly, diversity. Such words are increasingly becoming rare in today's time as community become a lot more exclusive and much more close, and it loses the opportunity of getting to know communities of different diverse values as well as backgrounds. It is already a wide knowledge to most of us, even reading and listening to all the other speakers, that in order to survive, I use the word survive these days, not so much thrive, organization and banks as well will need to accelerate not just the pace of transformation, but also to enhance the exciting customer digital experience. I say it because I'm not that old and not that young, and we do have our fair share of experiences. But my father-in-law, who is in his 85, never owned an ATM card, never used any digital phone, and so on and so forth. And he has just simply refused the digital world that has been increasingly become more and more important. And we all know that the inconveniences that have resulted from this, the lack of access and the technology. So I'm going to just touch on briefly on just 5 points which I have thought about a couple of weeks and so on. First thing first, when we talk about digital touch points and experiences, I think while we continuously go on and in our curiosity to embrace this new ecosystem, we mustn't forget that the interconnectivity potentials. I think that's important, as well as the multidisciplinary approach. From the organization perspective, we mustn't be too shallow in ourselves, hiding ourselves in one particular area of systems. For example, I find that in the banks that I work with for a number of years now, a compliance is a compliance person. A risk management is a risk management person. He or she has no idea what's going on the other side of the fence. All they know is, I'm the third line of defense, I'm the first line of defense, and that's all I do. When banks start merging, these are likely the people to lose their jobs. Okay, confirm with me later on when you ask me. Okay, this. But I think what I'm trying to say is that today's world demands people going beyond multidisciplinary. And I've always been advocating that irrespective of your background, if there's anything we need to do, it's to become financial literate. If you are financial illiterate, then you'll be left far behind. And this is exactly what I say to my workforce, about 140 people. And I say that whatever you do socially or work-wise, it is something that we all need to know. And given that the digital world is becoming more and more promiscuous and so on, it is important to embrace that. The second point, I thought, I heard the word agility was mentioned here, culture of agility and diversity, so that we can empower employees with the right vigor and tools so that they are more flexible. We are embarking on a couple of IT projects right now, replacing, for example, campus management system in the university that I work in. I have continuously delivered the message that no one should be left behind as a result of the change. Because following the change in technology, there will be change in reporting line, change in the job description, change in the job demands, which will also mean the kind of recognition being given to people. Whatever one say, there is still the dignity that we still need to address. And that dignity must be given back to the people who have played a part in this development. The third one is, of course, while we deploy intellectual capital through all of these changes, don't forget that we all need to be mentored, we all need to be coached at some point. There are two different perspectives altogether. Sometimes people get confused between the two. Let me just share with you, mentoring is just a system where you help people with expertise. You are an expert, you help people share your stories, share your good things, and help the person get onto the next level or become better. Coaching is really very much unlocking a person's potential so that they can maximize. You don't give the right answers, but you are there when he or she needs you. These things are very much absent in today's very, very hard world. I live and I came from a world where you do it my way or hit the highway. That was my ex-bosses in my earlier consulting world. It was a very hard world, but we lived through, we survived, and we remembered. But we remember the bad bosses. We don't remember the good bosses, unfortunately. And there are not many around during my time. I hope, Tan Sri, Michael, you will agree with me on that kind of point. This is the 1970s management style. And while doing so, I think one of the things we need to remember is that, that while no one is left behind, we mustn't also forget that that such issue on change is a non-communicable disease. I read somewhere in the Star Sunday, not too long ago, that there are easily 300,000 of students suffering from such illnesses. They are not able to cope with the changes. Some young people in my university couldn't cope when we went online. While we thought that, all young people love to study online. That's not true. There are people who want to get connected to their own kind in a social environment. And when you deprive them of that and throw them into a room with their parents that they want to avoid, it's a disaster in the making, right? The last point I want to talk about is people of older people. Are you aware that we will have 6 million, I think, 6 million silver population by 2030 in this country? That means 6 million of us will be above 60 years old, which means that you have to look at it from the opportunity perspective. Many organizations, particularly the public sector, tells the old people, by the age of 58, you better prepare, for retirement. And by the time you're 60 years old, they get replaced. Some get replaced even before they turn 60. I think you see more often these days, right? But the problem here is this: older people do have a lot of knowledge. I'm not saying all, but there are many. There are many. It's just that they don't know how. They don't know how. And we all need to understand that some businesses actually have got 5 generations of people in there. From the silent population right down to the millennium. If you count all together, there are 5 of them. And we need to look at how can we rebuild the skills of these people in the digital age. And last but not least, all of these require courage, and it requires high trust, as someone else say, and also, more importantly, the people that we involve in this marriage between technology and people. We need to have an acceptance of change, and that is the challenging one, not just human resource constituents, but also everyone involved, either in the organization or in the society. Thank you, Dato Nora.
Thank you, yeah. Thanks, Gillen. Just 2 things, I think, that I need to respond and put out there. Firstly, yes, we believe in giving everybody a chance. So from a Maybank perspective, in 2017, when we started our target to bring everybody to a minimum level of digital literacy, so it's not just financial literacy, it's digital literacy. One of the key messages that we put out there is we're here to support you, and the program is called Go Ahead, Take Charge, but it literally means that you have to take charge, right? We'll provide the opportunities, reskilling, upskilling, whatever that's needed, but do your part, right? Okay, thank you. Indra, give us your perspective.
Thank you, Dato Nora, and thank you, Tan Sri, for inviting me to this event. So for me, when I was invited to this event, it felt like a deja vu to me, because a couple of years back, I was working with Mr. Tay and Dato herself to identify what are some of the gaps when it comes to the skill set in the banking sector, right? And fast forward few years, I think the initial responses which we gave clearly indicates that we're far away from solving that problem, because that's a perpetual problem. And it's not just for us, right? When we did a CEO survey globally for the financial sector, 10 years back, only 50% of the CEOs were saying that they cannot implement their strategies, they cannot innovate because they don't have the right talent. And now that number has swelled from 50% to 76%. So that's the nature of the problem we are dealing with. And at the same time, when we look at the CEOs and leaders in this sector, they have a very strange dilemma at their hand. They want to invest in training their talent, they want to invest in upskilling and reskilling by knowing the fact that the investment which they are making is not going to be a longer term, right? Because in 2 to 3 years' time, again, a new wave of technology will come, new opportunities will come, and they have to reskill them again. And while the CEOs and leaders in this industry were still trying to find solution to this problem of digitalization or opportunity of digitalization, we were hit by something called COVID. And all the ideas and plans of digitalization which were there in their boardroom papers were now brought into the right in the front. And I can't even stop thinking or imagining the challenges which these leaders are going through, going back to the drawing board every now and then on a weekly basis, planning out new scenarios that how some of the commercial bankers or insurance players are going to interact and engage with the client using digital channels, which has really very limited precedence in the whole industry globally. So when I look at what COVID has done to us, it has actually it's a shocker for us, but it has also asked us to stress test our human capital. Like we stress test our balance sheets to ensure that we are prepared for any future unforeseen circumstances. Now we have to stress test our human capital. And in the past 5 or 6 months after interacting with many clients, what I realized that all those organizations who had implemented some sort of flex work arrangement, some sort of digital ways of working and learning were much better prepared to meet this situation than some of the other organizations, right? But everything is not gloom and doom, and recently we conducted a survey with nearly 1,000 participants from Malaysia and asked them about their outlook towards technology, and it was quite pleasing for me to see that 75% of them, like us, mentioned that they see technology more as an opportunity. they see that it will help them to develop and grow. Obviously, 25% of them were fearful, but majority is still very positive. And for leaders in the organization, it was also very important for us to see that more than 80% of them were happy to switch to a newer opportunity where they get chance to learn, to upskill or reskill. So now that brings a question back to us, like as an organizational leader, what are some of the things which we can do to upskill our talent, to manage the talent in the financial services? I think Dato mentioned a very important point. The first and foremost for me is to create a narrative. Right? We invest a lot in developing our talent. We invest a lot in now making sure that they can work comfortably and conducively from their work, from their homes. But have we created the narrative? Have we communicated to them that how important it is to upskill, the upskilling plans or initiatives which the company is taking? It will do a couple of things. Firstly, it will motivate your staff to upskill themselves. Secondly, it will increase the productivity. And most importantly, it will comfort your employees that the organization is doing something for me and hence increase your retention rate for the future. The second aspect which I think of is use digital tools, but also newer ways of working. So I think COVID has pushed all of us to, as Dato was mentioning earlier, Zoom and Microsoft Teams, Google Hangout, and all other collaborative tools. So we have fast forwarded that journey, but I think the changes in behavior and mindset are yet to take place, right? Are we still using or resorting to older ways of mechanism? A couple of days back, somebody was asking me that now, since most of my employees are working from home, how can I monitor them? And the idea nowadays is not to monitor whether they are spending 9 to 6 or not, but whether they are giving your outputs or outcomes or not, right? So that's the change of mindset we need to bring. Everything has gone agile. We also have to go agile by ensuring that rather than monitoring the time, we monitor the outcome. Rather than just having a call to get a status update, we also show empathy in those calls. And it doesn't take a lot of effort, right? Every morning, half an hour, you set your goals, you set your milestones, but you also set expectations, at the same time show empathy towards your team members. The third part, which I think we should all do, is pilot. So rather than, gone are the days when we can do a large-scale transformation. Everything has gone agile. Even Google, when launches its apps, it comes in versions. Similarly, we have to be iterative. We should start, whatever initiatives we are planning to do when it comes to talent, it has to be rolled off in a pilot mode. Start with small, get those lessons, and then scale it up. And lastly, I think Mr. Thay mentioned it very clearly. In our firm, we have this cliche, but it's not cliche anymore, that culture eats strategy for breakfast. So yes, we can go back to drawing board and we can have all those fancy strategy slides, but if culture is not taken care of, it will all fall apart. And I have a personal story to share with you on this occasion. So I've been with PwC Malaysia now for the 7 years, and in the past 7 years, we have rolled off more than 15 plus flex initiatives, and these all range from flex time, flex work. I think the favorite to all of us is a Flex Friday, where every second Friday of the month, we get a half day off. And initially, it was a very difficult challenge to roll it off, but our leader at that point in time ensured, the tone is from the top, so he asked all the partners and directors to leave on Friday afternoon, whether they work from home or whatever, but they have to leave. And in every team meeting, that question was asked, that are we following it or not? And that's the way he imbibed or he institutionalized that culture in the organization. So just to sum it up, I think when it comes to talent and skill set development, yes, we all are doing several initiatives and we are all bogged down and we are very busy. But I think the couple of things which I want to leave you all with is start soon. So don't wait for anybody else to do it, or don't wait to see that what others are doing and hence replicate it. So if you have a plan, start soon. Fail small. So when you start, and with the technology, as Dato mentioned, there's no latest technology. When you implement the technology, you may have challenges, you will face failure, but fail small. So do a pilot and fail small and get the lessons. And once you get the lessons, then scale up, scale fast, right? So start soon, fail small, and scale fast. Thank you.
Fabulous. Thank you, Indra. You know, on the point of workforce configuration, I read, I can't remember, I don't know if it's PwC, but this firm did a study of companies on whether they intend to maintain work from home, or at least a version of work from home, and 8 in 10, so 80% of the respondents said they are going to, right? And that includes Maybank. Now, but we've started on Flex for 2 years already now. However, as you rightly pointed out, I mean, we're a bank after all, right? Banking, so there are many risks that we are very clear is out there. But that doesn't stop us, because again, it takes a lot of courage to make the changes that's needed. Now, so maybe my question to Dato Henry, right? One of the risks that we're grappling with is security, data security, right? So when you work anywhere, you're mobile, you work from home, that's one of the toughest, because, for example, we are trying to get to about 5,000 of our people, right, who's mobile. And then we start having to ask them, do we have enough VPNs? And yeah. So can you give a bit of a color and advice in terms of what should we really look into?
Okay, that's a good thing, because for me, I mean, from a technology company, I would say that in terms of security through technology is already there. I believe that a lot of times technology in terms of preventing data loss or cybersecurity is already there, and they're abundant and they're really, really good. So, but the only key important here is that when you start to work from home, it's about the complacency of the human itself. A lot of times it's just like, for example, like my company provide OTP services to Maybank, for example. And the problem is that it's never about the OTP being compromised. It's about people passing their OTP to someone else. I think as part on our side, it's the same thing. A lot of times they come to us and say that, I want to have second factor authentication or third factor or whatever is it. But the key point is always about saying, hey, how do I then prevent this factor being passed on to someone that's unauthorized? So I think for bankers or for any companies per se, it's really about saying, do the other way around. You need to have the proper education, tell them how to be secure, and keep on reminding them. And I think, like for us in Macrocures, we do adopt an ISO standard on 27001, and that's something we always tell our customers, not the technology side, but rather the human side is the biggest risk. So if there's something that we can do on, then not too much of a concern about that, I think.
Absolutely right, yes. And we are very swift in terms of penalizing when it's a human, cause, right? Okay, so Indra, as the millennial representative on stage, are you also a millennial? I didn't check. Okay. What is your steer to us, to managers, to leaders, on how best to encourage our younger talents to more actively give their views? Sure. Get onto the, it's not just the women, leaning in, it's the younger talents. We need them to lean in. Sure.
So, as the only millennial on the panel, I think millennials overall, what I've seen, and I also work with quite a lot of them, they are quite eager to share their ideas, and they come from a very different generation of technology, where they have seen and gone through these constant slew of changes in their lifetime. So they are not afraid to share either it on social media or social platforms, or even in a meeting room. But again, I think part of us is also Asian. So we have been ingrained to respect hierarchy, starting from our childhood as a kid, growing up. So when it comes to that organization, we sometimes limit ourselves within that title which has been given to us. I'm not saying that you remove the titles, but as in individual teams, what we can do, and this is something which we practice a lot, is, and before I mention what I practice, I think something came to mind was what Simon Sinek said. He said that good leaders protect their employees, right? So not like not a safety protection, but they make them feel that they're in a protected environment. So in any meeting, any discussion, I think a starting point will be to set the notion in the room, whether you do it consciously or it's in a policy, that we all are equal when it comes to sharing ideas, that nobody is different, and let others start. And as a leader, we just sit back and orchestrate that discussion rather than trying to use our leadership capabilities. So once we start developing that ability, I think some of us will definitely pick it up, raise their hands and start speaking. Some of them will take some time. But slowly, gradually, it will become the culture of the organization, and then you don't have to do something consciously, but it will become your DNA. Hope that answers.
Yeah, thank you. I think one of the other aspects of that is, for us, as if we want to really pursue significant operational excellence improvement, is to look at, and that's something we've learned from even the COVID experience, if you like, is to re-look how we measure performance and success. I think the last panel talked about it briefly as well, right? The fact that business is now, or business has a conscience, right? It therefore says there are many other different indicators that we have to use. Do you actually have to just look at PBT per staff cost, year on year, right? I love it when BlackRock CEO in 2019, right, in January, in his letter to the CEO said, take care of your staff and your customers. That's all, right? He didn't say, I need an ROE of 17%, right? So I think that's very key. Now for training and learning, for example, right? Learning man days, we're counting the days because learning is democratized, right? For us, the first 2 weeks, that means in March, right? 2 weeks of MCO, we actually achieved 17,000 learners, virtual, right? We've never actually achieved 17,000 learners, completing a program in 2 weeks, right? So I told my EXCO colleagues just last week, because I have a dashboard, a HR talent dashboard, and one of the dashboard is learning man days, and it was showing red, right? And we said, no, because that is going to be taken out, right? We're looking at how many JIT, I remember my Intel days, that's so long ago, right? Just in time, on your smartphone, I need information, I need knowledge, I need product information, I just get it, right? Don't send me to a classroom to learn about a product. So, yeah, those are very, very key. Now, again, I'm conscious that we are trying to get back to time. Why don't I ask the panel members to give your 2-3 sentences, last words? Can I start with Dato? Yeah, Dr. Azmi.
Thank you very much. My point is that in the context of leadership and talent management, particularly in the Islamic finance industry, I think the requirement is much more just purely technical, banking or takaful. It requires somebody who has knowledge in Islamic finance or a bit of Sharia, and at the same time, bringing the element of technology inside there. Particularly now, technology is very pervasive in Islamic finance. We are using technology, particularly the digital applications, to bring in financial inclusion. If you look at the discussion on financial inclusion, both in African countries as well as in Asia, Muslims do not participate in the financial sector because of religious reasons. So having digital application, you bring more people inside the financial sector. Thank you.
Fabulous. Thank you, Dato' Azmi. Luan?
I will stick to the deployment of intellectual resources and that we must not leave behind the softer part. I was corrected the other day when I said that to someone to say that you only coach the average to become above average. You coach the best become even better. How about the below average? I was corrected that the below average and the so-called non-performers can also be coached, and that the word counseling should not be used. I'm starting to embrace this change, and I said perhaps, I need to have that mindset. So with that in mind, I'd like to urge everyone in this room to perhaps reflect on that and see whether the terminologies of the three words I've just mentioned here, whether the concept of coaching, helps in this transition or not. I think it's very crucial. I think it does work. Yeah.
Thank you. So for me, I think in the age of this recovery from pandemic and post-COVID era, when we are all talking about agility and resilience, I will repeat my previous words, which is whatever initiatives you have, they are still valid, but start them soon and try on a pilot, so fail small and then scale it fast. Thank you.
All right. Yeah, I think for me is that the COVID is a very good opportunity for testing. So a lot of things for like digitalization has been done for test. Even my company is a digital company, but we still do a lot of testing, especially what COVID brings along. So I think the good part about it is that it has gone through a lot of testing, and I think while of course COVID is recovering now, I can still think that there's still a lot of opportunity for us to test a lot of things, like what Indra was mentioning. So I think use this opportunity to test. But I think whatever test is it must always take the human factor into play. Just to share one quick story before I end is that a lot of times we want to drive digital technology through top-down approach is very, very difficult. But I think we should look at how the user part of it, how we can entice the user to adopt technology will be then more effective. Looking at the point, you say, just one quick sharing is that, many years ago, my mom, she's technology phobic. I think Dato Nora was talking to Dato Nora about this, technology phobic, and the point is that she does not want to use technology or does not want to use the phone. However, what we did is that then we brothers was talking to my mom and say that, we have this chat group that we share a lot of stuff, and we try to we share pictures and things like that, blah, blah, blah. And because she doesn't want to lose out in that factor, she then, okay, I'll learn. And finally now she shares more things on the chat group than we do. And I think that's forced her to say then adopt it something, but she adopted it because she doesn't want to lose out. And I think this same concept can be applied and should be applied in the era of using technology for human adoption or human management in that sense. Yeah, thanks. Thank you.
Now, self-evaluation, self-reflection, I think is important, so we get the benefit of the day, right, for yourselves as well. There is, a survey which says that 4 in 10, this is banking sector, 4 in 10, when they are asked, they say they are prepared to compete in a digital-driven market and economy. However, when the masses are being asked whether their leaders have the right skills and mindsets to enable them, it was only 10%. Okay, so that's quite depressing. So I think it's something that we need to really think about. I'd like to end, I think, with another point that hopefully that helps you in your self-reflection. And this is echoing a professor from MIT who said that digital transformation, if done right, turns a caterpillar into a butterfly. But if done wrong, all you get is a very fast caterpillar. Okay, all right then. So thank you very much. Please join me in thanking the panel members, and I hope you benefited. Thank you.